morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to check in on Prismatic Evolutions. It's been out for a little while now. And we've all gotten a little bit excited about Journey Together. We've been talking about what's going on with Journey Together recently. But we do need to take a step back. And we need to have a look at Prismatic Evolutions. And we need to ask the question, what's going on with prices over there? Are things getting a bit more reasonable? And the answer is no. To be blunt, prices are going up. They are shooting up pretty much across the board. Now, there are a couple of exceptions, but they are just the cards that were ridiculous to begin with. The Umbreon, for instance, has come down to a $1,450 card. I mean, come on. It has come down, but it's still a ridiculous, absurd price. It's still the most expensive Pokemon card that can be pulled from a pack by a bit of a margin. So, yes, it's come down, no argument there. But the thing you have to remember when we're looking at this is that is really not the whole story. Because, you know, this graph goes from $1,640 to $1,440. Even with a $200 drop, that is not that much. Please bear that in mind. The other one that's come down is Sylveon here. And Sylveon, again, was always the number 2 card. It was always incredibly high. And now it's come down. But again, when I say come down, it's come down from like over $700 to about $500. It has just become a far more sensible price, which is fine. That's generally what we tend to see here. So, yes, it's lower. Absolutely, it's lower. But let's not go pretending it's some kind of like uber cheap card, because it's absolutely not. And last time we talked about this, I told you that the Eevolutions were essentially finding a middle ground. Some were going up, some were coming down. They were all going towards some kind of mystical middle ground. That's not the case here. That's not where we are anymore. Essentially, we've got the Umbreon and the Sylveon I've just told you about, which are absolutely coming down in price. Outside of that, it is just going upwards pretty much across the board. In the last few weeks since we last looked at this, the tide has turned and it is generally up. There are a few that are starting to come down a little bit from the high, but make no mistake about it, the general trend here is up. So take a look at Leafeon, which for some reason has ended up settling as the third biggest of the Eevolutions. Well, that one's coming in right now at about a $460 card. And don't get me wrong, it's a special illustration rare, and people seem to think they're quite hard to pull from Prismatic Evolutions. People are not loving the pull rates on them generally, and it's an Eevolution, which is obviously a big deal. And a Leafeon's kind of borderline playable, but it's not the most playable of the Eevolutions. That's Flareon. But yeah, it's sitting there at $460 because it's an Eevolution. Have a look at Espeon, and sure, from the high of $430, it stabilized at about $420. Again, that's a very small drop. But make no mistake about it, over the past 3 months, you look at the trend here, and we are very much trending upwards. That's what we're seeing from these across the board. Now, partly, this is because it's been a hard set to find. And like, we know reprints are coming. Pokemon have come out very explicitly and said, yo, dudes, just to be clear, right? We are doing reprints of these. I don't expect these prices to stay this high forever. I do expect them to come down over time. I expect things to get a lot more reasonable as time goes along. But what I'm saying is, where we are right now, it's pretty indisputable. Prices are just going up, and it's going to take a reprint probably to bring them back down. Vaporeon was one that started too high, dropped down fairly significantly. You know, we started at like $390, came down to under $300, but we're now back up to $380. Vaporeon came down very, very nicely and is now just going straight back up again. Because people are realizing that the Prismatic Evolutions packs are getting hard to find, and the Eevolutions are the best among them, and these special illustration rares, like, how many people how many of you watching have gone and bought an Elite Trainer box or some other product of Prismatic Evolutions and found you didn't get a special illustration rare? probably a fair bunch of you. That means that these special illustration rares, this is going to happen. You know, take Flareon. I know Flareon's come down a little bit since the peak. You know, it peaked up around 405, and now it's sitting at about 345-ish. I know it says 337 there, but the graph's really telling us 345, so take it with a pinch of salt. But it's around there generally. So even though it's come down a little bit from its biggest peak, if we're looking at trends over the past 3 months, make no mistake about it, Flareon has been going up. This at least is the most playable of the Eeveelutions. I'm not saying that Flareon decks are absolutely crushing the meta and they're everywhere and they're winning everything or anything like that. No! What I am saying, however, is that Flareon is a deck which is seeing some play, seeing some love. It is out and about. And that alone is pretty gosh darn cool. We're not there yet. It's not the best deck in the format. But I am seeing a fair amount of it sneaking through here or there. And that's kind of brilliant. If we keep going through the Eeveelutions, we've got a Glaceon, which has jumped up from about 270 to about 330. Again, a pretty clear upwards trajectory here, like we see with all of the Eeveelutions. Nobody should be surprised. And the Glaceon's really nice. I do like the whole instant KO on something with exactly 6 damage counters on it. That makes me pretty happy. But at the end of the day, we're still talking about a card which, it's cool and it's an Eeveelution. It's not hideously playable. And then we finish off with Jolteon here, in terms of the evolutions at least, which again, we've seen that jump up from like 210 to over 310. That's a $100 jump since release. And you'll notice that we're not where we were a minute ago, where I'm telling you, well, some are coming down from being a bit too high, and some are coming up from being a bit too low, and they're all kind of meeting in the middle. That was the past. That was weeks ago, and that was happening. I showed you the proof. That is not happening now. We are seeing a pretty general trend upwards. We have to go slightly out of order for the Eevee. The Eevee's actually been all over the place, going up and down, but still talking a general trend up. This one has just been floating around a little bit more than some of the others. It's probably a nice, polite way to put it. Still would very much like to get my hands on this Eevee. This Eevee is amazing. But what about the other special illustration rares? Are they doing the same thing? Yes. And don't get me wrong, some of them are going up and keeping a little bit flat. Take Ceruledge, for instance. This one has generally gone up and stayed a little bit flat. But again, if we look at the general trend, they're going up. I'm not saying every single one of these has been a straight upwards trajectory from release till now. That's just never going to be the case. Things are going to flick around here and there. But we see a general upwards trend on all of them. We're not seeing some up, some down like we did last time. General upwards trend. Roaring Moon, the biggest one of the non-Eeveelutions. And let's stop looking at the trend for a minute, although again, trend upwards, obviously. But $300? $300 for what is not even close to being a top card in the set. Remember, this is behind all of the Eeveelutions, not Eevee, but the actual evolutions. So, this is like the 9th biggest card in the set, and it's a $300 card. This is number 9! That's absurd! I still contend the prices of Prismatic Evolutions are way too high, although again, and I've said this earlier, but let me say it again nice and clearly now, I do think we're waiting for a reprint at this stage. I think until the reprint, and we know the reprint's coming, we've been promised the reprint's coming, but I think until the reprint actually appears, we are going to see more of this. We are going to see more of these cards just going up and staying up, and I do sincerely believe at some point we will get a good enough reprint for it to come down. You know, Pokemon have made public announcements. We know that they're aware of this. But the fact is, they haven't come through now, and until they come through, we're going to see the same thing here. I'll take a look at Raging Bolt, obviously a very playable card. One which has not been quite so good lately, but has absolutely had its time and absolutely could again. We've seen this jumping up from about $90 up to like $155, which is clearly incredibly high. Is it too high? Probably, yeah. we could keep going all the way down. Let's go right down to the bottom, right? And we could take, if we take 3 of the lower ones right now, Sandy Shocks has somehow ended up as a $75 card. This one actually took a little bit of a while. This one took some time to go up, but eventually it did end up going up, and it's there as a $75 card, which seems kind of ridiculous. And then we can finish off with, let's say Petulant, one of the least sought after in the set. And you can see this went up and has started coming down a little bit, but only a little bit. From the peak, we've gone from 75 down to 60. So let's not pretend this is some kind of huge crash. But even that card is like a $60 card, which just makes no sense to me. And again, if we look at some of the other sets around, for instance, let's go and have a look at Paradox Rift as an example. And I know the set's not as sold out and not as hard to find and all of that. I know, I get it. But the Roaring Moon EX in there is a $55 card. It is less than this Petulant nobody really wants. The Garchomp is a $35 card. The extremely playable Golden Go is a $30 card. The Iron Valiant is a $30 card. These are more playable cards that I'm just going to come out and say are much cooler than the Petulant, which is one of the least popular cards in the entirety of Prismatic Evolutions. And yet Petulant's higher. And some of the ones I've just mentioned, Petulant is double. And it all comes down to the set just being a little hard to find right now. When the reprint comes, things are going to change. I believe that sincerely, but the reprint hasn't come yet. So we are in a situation now where, like it or lump it, this is what's going on with Prismatic Evolutions. The price is not coming down in the way that a lot of people were hoping. The reprint hasn't come around yet. So for now, the message is quite clear. It's going up. And right now, it's pretty clear across the board. Prices are jumping up. So there we go. That's what you need to know. I hope you got your Prismatic Evolutions. If not, I hope the reprint comes soon. For now, I want to know what you think of Prismatic Evolutions, whether you think it's worth it, whether you've pulled any of these cards. Let me know in the comment section. Get us! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. And get shoutouts on the channel like the lovely Eric Ridgway, who's been a supporter of ours for a long time now and seems to be a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.